important issue for our district. So it's really going to take three parts. We're going to move through it pretty quickly on why there is a need to be on the ballot. Number two, our campaign strategy, and number three really is really breaking out and going to each one of the tables to look at some of the different committees, and I'll announce where those tables are. There's 5 of them around the room. So let's get started. Today's discussion, you can see, I just kind of this recaps a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. And just real quick for those folks not familiar with the history of the levy campaigns and SEL, I'll be honest with you, typically the life of a levy cycle is usually about 3 years, just the way that state funding works. Like it or not, that's how we fund our schools in Ohio, and it does force school districts such as ourselves to go back to the voters for a tax levy. If you look at that, you can kind of see, and I could have taken you back all to 1960, but you can see from 1994, we've been typically in SEL on the ballot about every 3 years, which is a typical life cycle of a tax levy. However, when I came here in November of 2012, one of my first charges were that we had to pass a levy for new money, and we did that in November of 2012. We've been doing a really good job, thanks to everybody in this room and more, for the fact that it's been 2.5 levy cycles over 7 years. And really what it comes down to, remember I said it's about every 3 years, we've done as much as we can do and tried to spread, be fiscally good stewards of everybody's money for the last 7 years. It's just time. So you can see that there's been almost an 8-year span that we've asked our voters. So why is that? And I'm going to, if you've not met our treasurer, this is Josh Hill, and let's give him a welcome.
Thank you. As we go through this, you'll see this is actually the bottom couple of lines from the 5-year forecast. I really just kind of cut the top off just so we can really emphasize and look at why is there a need, why are we asking, why are we coming to you now. You see out in fiscal year 2022, that's where we start to see this deficit. So the top line there, the 9.1 million, almost 9.2 million, that is without the levy considered. When you look at the levy, which in 2021 we get a half a year collections based on calendar year versus fiscal year, and then we get a full year of collections in 22, we'd still be about 2 million short. The $2 million deficit, when you consider a 5-year forecast, 5-year forecast is always worst case scenario. 2 million over 3 years is doable, 9 million is not. So that's why I really want to emphasize this page to show you this. This is why there is an ask. When we look at the type of levy, we had numerous discussions with the board about this, and finally settled on the idea of having a combination levy. We're looking at doing a total 6.9 mil levy. It's comprised of a current expense levy section that is 5.9 mils. This is going to go for general purpose. It's going to go for salaries, benefits, purchase service, supply materials, just the general day-to-day upkeep education, that we need. And then we talked about doing the permanent improvement. This 1 mil, we wouldn't do this without an ask or without, I guess, the what's in it for me. We're looking at this 1 mil this is our competitive piece. All the districts we're competing with to retain our students or attract students, it has air conditioning in most cases. We're looking at doing this 1 mil to stay competitive and put air conditioning in all of our schools.
And as Mr. Hill said, when you really look about, this campaign is about staying competitive. When you really look over the last 3 or 4 years, you're seeing a lot of school districts who are building new buildings, or putting air conditioning in their buildings. We know that the learning environment for both our students and teachers, you need air. You need to be able to have some airflow. And we hear all the time when I go to the realtors, and we may have old buildings, but they're really great buildings, and you can see that we're really starting to rededicate space to be competitive with the folks around us. So this is something that we talked about, and be able to do it. We figured it's been almost 7.5 years that this would be the time to ask the community to help us stay competitive with our neighboring school districts. So in order to win, this is 5 critical points that you can see, and you can read it yourself, and again you have the PowerPoint. So real quickly, I'm going to go through this to show how we are going to run the campaign. So let's look a little bit with regards to, I'm going to move the carpet here so I don't have to stay on this side. Let's look a little bit with regards to targeting voters. So we're in March. So we're in March. You kind of want to study what has the turnout been during March elections, and you can see that up there on the screen. So based on that numbers, we're projecting approximately 45% turnout in March. And again, you look at that, there's approximately 26,000 registered voters. If you really go to the last line, we realize a few things. Not, everybody's going to vote yes, and not everybody's going to vote no. But the fact of the matter is we need to know how many votes that we need to inform voters that why this is a good thing for the community and the school district. So you can see the magic number, about 5,800 votes.
And that does take into account the presidential primary. That's why we showed the space of the 4 years. A typical March, obviously, the difference between the two is drastic. So we want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples and looking at the presidential primaries for that.
A moment here, I wasn't sure I was going to use this. My things over there. So anyways, so you look at the last day of elections, look at that. So you look at some trend data there. So you can see that even though you're registered to vote, the idea is really who comes out and who is going to be our targeted group, not just every registered voter, because some people are registered, but they don't actually come out and vote. So if you look at that, you can see the three asterisks there that 48 voters have voted in the last 6 of 8 elections, including the last 3 or 4. And that's really, we will be targeting those voters who really cast votes. So again, you're not chasing all the votes because you're really looking at those people that traditionally come out and do vote. So how do we come about with some of our messaging campaign? Well, we know that it's been a little bit over 7 years since the last time we asked the community for a tax levy. And in September of this past fall, we did a marketing survey. And you can see from there, it actually was done over a 5-week period. They actually called folks in our both communities of South Euclid and Lyndhurst, and really spent about 16 minutes on the phone to ask them a series of questions of perception, a series of questions about our community and our schools, and we were able to get some survey data from that. So again, for those of you who would like to know, it had they had to hit a certain number, and they weren't going to quit until they did that, so they could have a 95% confidence rate of what we were going to be looking at. So these were some of the top messages. Again, you can read them, and they're also in the handout. For those that came in a little bit later, there's a handout, this PowerPoint at every table, so feel free to take that. So this is some of the things that they looked at. They're aware of that it's been 7 years, and they like that. They're also aware that having the quality of the community is also based on their schools. And they know that SEL Schools has done more with less. And so some of the things that we've done, we will not only be taking those messages in some of our information with our levy, we've already been communicating that information that already began, I think, in the beginning of January with our community. So when you look at how are we going to accomplish that? I'll go over some of the things in a moment from that slide. It's really, you need a campaign budget, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You look at access to the media, and so these are some of the things, and really the last bullet point is why you're here today, is it takes people. I tell folks it takes 3 things, and all of them are equally important. As obviously you need organization, volunteers. You also need to have enough campaign funds to be able to get that message out. And you need to have the right message. And so you can see that we've laid a lot of groundwork and foundation to be able to get this. The levy may be getting off the ground today, but it's been months in the works of getting information of how to run it. So when you look at, you're curious to where we're at, so it takes to do direct mailers, to do the phone call, to do a lot of the work that we need to do for this campaign will be just a little bit over 18,000. So we're there. We're over halfway there, and we have been having some donations coming in. I know CELTA, thank you, has given a donation. Our administrators have donated, and we actually had some money left over for the last campaign. There will be a fundraising, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it really takes some money to be able to run the campaign, and that's why you really want to put a lot of energy in the first time, because if you don't pass a levy, you got to go back on it, and then you have to raise funds again. So it's really important that we do this right the first time and have enough people to be able to do it. So today you can see that there is, you're here today, it's our call to action. And I know some of you have already signed up, thank you, and I know we're going to keep recruiting. The message is just because some people already signed up does not mean that that committee is filled. My charge to the principal was that they had to each get 15 people from their building before winter break, and they did. So thank you very much, but that wasn't all of it. I just wanted to make sure that we had a core group that got off the ground. So I know I've heard a little bit that, hey, I think they already got their committee filled. No committee is filled. We need as many workers as we can, so please keep that in mind. So today we can look at, just letting you know, we'll break off in a little bit. We have social media over here, we have phone calling, we have public speaking, we have poll working, and then we have fundraising back there. I will go over that, what's at each table. So we find, over the weekend, did get an issue. It is issue 32, and it's one of those ones that you can see it says for or against. Sometimes they'll say vote yes, vote no. This is one of those issues that say that you vote for it or you vote against it. Okay, so go over here. So the phone calling committee. Everything you need to know is really going to be on that table and more, and we will follow up. There's actually a script that goes up with it. We already have a list of, Jim, how many phone names do we have over there today?
We have about 60 sheets that have 44 numbers apiece.
Okay, there's about 60 sheets with 44 numbers apiece. And one of the things that you do for those folks that have signed up today and those that we're going to continue to recruit is really we ask people to take a sheet or two. And really, the nice part about it is we are, you get to call, you know, in the older days you had to go meet somewhere, you can actually call from your home and there's instructions. We actually have this script for you. So a lot of people are like, well, what do I say? All that is written out. And really, it's really not about engaging people. You might call someone and they're like, they want to get into a debate. We even tell you how to handle that. So it's not something that you have to convince. The idea is really to get the information out. People want to have that. Some people really, a lot of people read our newsletters. So I'm going to take it, a lot of people want to get a phone call for somebody, from somebody that they're trying to support. And we're thinking about Wednesdays as being a call night because if you commit to that, we have different messages that are going to go out. So usually within, if you say, well, I can't do it Wednesday night, we're going to say, well, can you get it done by Thursday night? Because within that week, there's a certain message or a certain call that we want to go through. We want to hit our goal of hitting that number that we talked about, 80, I should say it's about 8,000 phone calls that we want to make before we're over with this. So I'll take questions, but I want to keep moving through this. And really, that's something that's really worked. I ran several campaigns, and 4 of them successful, and the phone calling was a huge one. So the next campaign committee is social media. I'm going to admit, this is a new one. Time has passed, you talk about social media. It's been 7-8 years since our last one. Social media is a big one. And so there have been people that signed up for that are very comfortable with this. The nice part again is we've already opened up, Jim, there's already been a social media, I don't know, say website, Facebook page, right?
Yes.
And really what the folks are going to do is there are probably 30 to, I should say about 35 to 40 messages that have already been created. And how it works is we're actually going to be posting stuff on this Facebook page, and really those folks that have signed up for social media are going to join reposting it. And again, because there's no point, we just created it, we don't have a lot of followers, but all of you have a lot of followers that people will look at. So again, the instruction is over there on that table, but we're really looking at really pushing out information, and we all know that social media is the way that people do things. So that is a new committee, and I think it's an important committee that we have. They're all important, but that's a new way to push out information. Even for some of our recent alumni who are actually in college and really want to support their schools, you know, there'll be information that's pushed out that if they want to take an absentee ballot, you know, how do I do it? You know, making it easy for folks to get the information that they want. So there's so many different ways that we can use that. So we do have quite a few people that signed up for public speaking. And what we thought is that there might be people that are really comfortable going out and talking in the public. There's other people, though, that may just are not comfortable talking in public, but they would do what we call a selfie to say, hey, vote for issue 32, whatever. I put 3 children through school. I'm very pleased with the education they received, and really some of those things, again, going back to social media, that we can post. We also found out that there's about 40 plus different community events and district events, such as PTAs, and really we are going to have I think a Google form that we will put out that people can actually sign up. It's a calendar. So we're trying to get everything as organized, because we don't want everybody signing up for one thing. You know, whether it's 2-3 people at a certain event, we want to make sure that we're having somebody go to each one of these events. Sure, Josh and I can go to them, but they want to hear from staff, they want to hear from parents, they want to hear from other folks in the community. We've had some of our pastors sign up. So again, it's not just important that we're out there talking at those events, but really authentically listening to how you feel about this district, how some of your students feel about the education that they've got. So we have information, I think, over here on that. Almost there. And fundraising. So again, it takes funds. And again, we don't want to shortchange. We're going to do some direct mailers, because you got to remember it's going to be March. And a lot of times we've had people do literature jobs. The reality is it's going to be cold, and you don't really want people out there in the cold. You won't see a whole lot of yard signs. Again, we don't know if there's going to be snow, so a yard sign might not do that well. So some of the money that we'll need to do is really directly mailing it to the homes. And again, not every home. It's those ones that we talked about targeting, that have voted in the last 6 to 8 elections, that really, according to the survey, is that they want to know, how did we save the money? How were we able to stretch it? So there's the messaging that we're going to give those folks with some of the things we're doing in our academic achievement, all of that. So what we're asking folks that have signed up for it, we thought at first maybe having an event. I think that's too hard. We all know that our time is precious. It's hard enough. We don't want to compete with the brown and gold and just different things. And so really we're asking those folks that, to ask people for a donation. There's a donation letter. We've tried to make it as easy as possible on our volunteers. And if something's not clear, we're here to help explain it. So go through this piece. And the poll working committee, that's self-explanatory on the day of the election. Again, we'll have sign-up times. The only thing that we have to caution on is, even though your lunch period, I see some staff members out there, is your lunch period, sometimes the community doesn't understand that. And so we try to shy away from those work hour times, because we really don't want people to misunderstand that we're actually maybe using school dollars and resources on the levy. And that's just, so we ask, sometimes it's those early risers, 6:30 in the morning till late at night. So, and it's important, because one thing I've learned in every campaign that I've done, when you're out there and support our schools, if it's that important that we put it on the ballot, then we're really to stand out there and stand up for our schools and be able to maybe answer any questions that we have. So this part here, again, for those of you who have not been on a campaign, this kind of shows you direct method gets the message quicker to people than indirect. So I'm just kind of showing you, because you might ask the question, well, why? In the old days, everybody put up a yard sign. Well, signs are good, just strategically placed is where you need them. It's not just that piece. So it's really important that, again, the videos, targeting public engagement. I know that our Board of Education, I can tell you this much, and they don't get paid for doing this. They go to the South Euclid Lyndhurst City Council meetings once a month, and they've been doing that for as long as I've been here. So it's really good that we've built up that relationship, but I also know that they're probably going to attend every council meeting in case there's questions. And so that's also an opportunity for some of those folks that want to go to public engagement committee, can also help them as well. So let's see, we're almost done here. So we talked about already the financials in a flash. So these were some of the things that were really a part of the levy, because according to the surveys, they want to know how we did it. So these things were sent out to about 16,000 folks, because that's how many people get our newsletter. And you won't believe this, but the newsletter is probably the #1 way that people in our community said that they got our information. So that kind of took me by surprise. So if you're wondering why we're still doing it, there's 16,000 people, and I get a lot of people come up and say, hey, you know, I really like the newsletter and different things. So now everybody goes to the website. A lot of our folks don't do the social media thing, and so a lot do. So we're trying to hit every avenue there. So just letting you know that we've already been sending stuff out, and here are some important dates that you can see. We work backwards. Wow, interesting date, March 17th for St. Patty's Day. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But you can see absentee ballot when it closes. But the important thing is look when absentee ballot opens. So if you wonder why you want to front load a levy campaign, is many people, and they get their ballot in February there. If you're like me, I do absentee ballot. I don't really vote right away. But I also sit on it a little bit, and so we want to make sure that we can't really wait until the end to get information, that we have to front load pushing out the information to folks, because they have the opportunity to seal that ballot and vote a good month before, okay? So they'll keep some of those things in mind, and this was the first of the levy night. We appreciate that. We knew that we would probably get a lot of staff here, and that was important. We also know that a lot of our parents may not have been able to make this because it was right after school. So we are going to do another one at 7 o'clock, so we're trying to accommodate for those folks as well. So we will have another meeting. It'll be the same thing, so you don't have to come back again. And some of this stuff here is actually top 10 ways you can help. That's all on the table. And again, I said I wanted to kind of move through this. Really, how many days do we have? There you go, 56. And so here's what my thing is. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not thinking about this and I'm not working towards it. So I ask you, for those folks, is there shouldn't be a week that goes by that we're not doing something. We know that's important. Yes, we know there's do's and don'ts of things that we can do, and our principals have copies of that. And if you ever have a question, see your building principal or ask us. But really, you know, today's call is really for us to go out and really ask questions about the committees or take the information. But with that being said, I'll take any questions, and if I don't have any questions, then I'll start to re-clarify what's on the tables. Yes.
What's the cost in those of us that live in the school district?
So on the talking points, that is one of the questions on the talking points, and I'll let you, $20.13 a month.
For a $100,000 home, annually is $241.50.
Say that again, please.
$241.50.
On a $100,000 home, which I think came in with $20.13 a month.
Yeah.
So a couple things that you want to know is this is what the levy talking point sheet. It will have some of that information. So I'm going to encourage you on every table, and if one table ran out, go to another table, is that we have those type of things that our folks want to hear about. Good questions. So
And also in that regard, on the levy website, on the school website, if you click on the page, we have the levy calculator on there, so you can actually go in and drop your value in, and it'll tell you exactly what it'll cost you. You're welcome.
One of the other things I'm going to encourage everybody to take on each one of the tables, again, you're going to see week by week, so you can see the overall view of what we're doing for the campaign. Plus, if you are in a specific committee, you're going to see what that is. And then at every table, this one is tailored to phone calling committee. You can see the details. It tells you the dates we're doing it. We did that for every one of the committees, and we're going to be able to give more information, but we wanted to make sure that we outlined instructions for you that made it as easy as possible to help with the levy. Other questions? Great. And then there is sign-up sheets for those folks that have not signed up, because what we want to do is, one important thing, usually people are used to having a one campaign chair to chair it. We're learning that actually that's a big responsibility for people that are stretched in 1,000 different directions. The best way that we've saw it, we've used this strategy before during these committees, and they've been successful for, 4 different times. But we are asking for is really, instead of always emailing our 100+ workers, that, like the phone call committee, if there's one person that would want to be a chair of that committee, because a lot of times it's easier for Jim or I to send out an email to just, 5 different people rather than to 150 different people and be able to do that. So we have, we are looking for, if somebody wants to chair, you can see, we're going to give all the information. We just sometimes need to be able to have someone else help us put that, push that out information. So I don't know if there's a spot on the sign-up sheet, but if there's not, we actually, and there may be, okay, that if there's somebody that really looks like they want to chair the social media or any one of the groups, please put your name down on the sign-up sheet. That would be very helpful. So at this time, if there are no more questions, we are going to ask you to take information with you. We are also going to ask for those that couldn't make it today. We need more help with the committees, and the best way we can win is through volunteers and organization, messaging, and money. So, any other questions? How'd I do? Okay. All right, thank you. Go to a table, get some information. Thank you very much.